Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second panel of the night. This is Utah Remote Con. We are going to be talking about audiobooks. I know it's kind of a random topic, but you know what? Audiobooks are actually it's a lot bigger than you think it is. There's a lot of avid readers out there, and sometimes audiobooks is just the way to go. We hope you guys are enjoying the panels so far. We've got plenty more to come. We are only day 4 of Utah Remote Con, and we have so many more panels. So make sure you check them out. We have Marvel Night tomorrow, and then on Saturday is kind of our gaming day. So make sure you check those out. And we are raising money for JDRF, which is the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. So make sure you go on and donate. You can do that at givebutter.com/Utah Remote Con 2. The link is scrolling down here below my face, as well as it's on the links or the description of this video, as well as it's on our social media for Utah Remote Con. So make sure you check that out. And if you go on there and donate, there's an option to do raffle tickets. We have some awesome prizes available. The ones for tonight's panel. Oh, yes, I remember now. We have two annual passes to Salt Lake City green bikes. So that's kind of fun. I kind of want one of those because I work in downtown Salt Lake and that would be awesome, but I don't know if I'll win them. But anyways, stay tuned for the end of the panel. That's when we will be announcing the winner of the raffle. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring in our awesome panelists, and I will be here too. I'm part of this panel. So we have Steph and Blake and Henry, and then we have Corinne. So I'll have Stephanie kind of take over. Go ahead, Steph.
Hello. I'm Steph. I'm the funny one of Cutscenes and Cupcakes, the podcast. This is Henry. He is 3 weeks old, so hopefully he is calm throughout most of the panel, or else Blake has to take over. This is husband Blake.
Hello, I am Blake. I'm on the Lettuce In podcast, which is a TTRPG podcast. We just started our second season, and it should be airing in 2 weeks, I think. Something like that. So,
yeah, and then to Blake's side, we also have Corinne, who stepped in wonderfully. Then we had an emergency with our other panelist. Corinne, do you want to give yourself a little introduction?
Yeah, I don't have a podcast, but I devour podcasts vociferously, using a big word, showing
you
stuff
probably know
up.
how to say magnanimously.
Hey, you did it! Yay! You did it! It's only when you're trying. And I love audiobooks, and I love listening to things, which is, I know, kind of broad, but it's true.
I feel like podcasts and audiobooks just kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. I go
They
through
really
phases where I'm like, I want to listen to podcasts. So I'll like listen to nothing but podcasts for like a month. And then I'll be like, I need to listen to an audiobook. So I'll listen to like nothing but audiobooks for like a month straight. And it's never the same.
Yeah. And then I guess I didn't introduce myself at the beginning either. I forgot. I knew there was one thing I was forgetting, but also my name is right here. But anyways, I'm Marlee. I'm also part of the Cutscenes and Cupcakes podcast and the Stolen Droids podcast. And I am excited to be here and talk about books because, yeah, like you, Corinne, I'm the same way. I'll like listen to an audiobook and then I'll be like, okay, I need to go catch up on some podcasts, and I'll do that for a little while. And it's mostly, for me, it surrounds, so I use a library app for my audiobooks, and they're not always available. Sometimes I have to wait weeks or months for a title to be available, and you only have it for a 2-week amount of time. So you kind of, once you get it, you kind of have to drop everything you're doing or listening to and go with that audiobook for a little while. So I kind of will base my timing around that. But it works out. It's great. I feel like there's always something to listen to.
Do you ever get it where you get like 3 library books, like 3 of your holds become available on like the same day, and so then you have to like, you're like, I either have to like borrow them now or like suspend my hold, or like I feel like it's always like feast or famine.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that has definitely happened to me, but it's also I put on hold a trilogy. And of course, you need to read them in order. But the second and third books kept coming available sooner than the first one. So I've kept needing to suspend them. And finally got the first book, and I've started it yesterday. So I'm excited.
What book was it? What series?
It's called Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It's kind of it's like a darker fantasy YA series. I love that stuff. I think it's great.
I guess that's another good question to get to know. What's your favorite audiobook, or I guess just book, but what's your favorite book you've listened to recently? I'll go because I had one prepared. My favorite, so we are trying to keep this PG, but this is a title, so I can't not say it. It's Shit Actually by Lindy West. I have suggested it to so many people. It's the funniest book that I've ever listened to. At my spa job, a lot of us massage therapists will stick a headphone in our ear and listen while we massage. Little trick of the trade for you guys. And I listened to it during a massage, and I had to turn it off because I was starting to laugh during a massage, and it's not really great to be like working on people's glutes and whatnot and start laughing. So it's so funny. It's about movies. It's about critiquing movies, and it's read by the author Lindy West. It's just so funny.
And what was the name again?
Shit Actually.
Okay.
It's like Love Actually, but she hated it, so she renamed it.
I'm gonna check that out.
It's so good. What about you, baby?
What books have I listened to?
What's your favorite book?
Favorite book? Red Rising. Red Rising, the series, is phenomenal. It's narrated by Tim Jared Reynolds, and it's going to have 6 books. There's 5 out right now, and it's like a post-apocalyptic dystopian future society. And in it, there's a different caste system, and there's kind of different levels of life for people, and it's all based on their color, but not like real life, because that's a little dark. There's like reds and golds and yellows and blues and greens, and depending on what color you are determines your rank in society, and it's really good.
Jason Black agrees with you and also mentions Dresden Files. What about you, Corinne?
I don't have favorites of anything. I think there's too many things in the world to enjoy, but the first audiobook that I listened to that I really I was like, we can do this, was Jurassic Park.
Oh, nice.
Narrated by Scott Brick. And coincidentally, that was the first audiobook that I got from the library app. It was Overdrive at the time. Now it's Libby. And then the next book that I ended up just getting from the library was also narrated by Scott Brick. And it just happened to be coincidental. And I was like, does this guy just narrate every single audiobook? I just don't understand. But he does a great job. His voice is nice and deep, so it's easy to hear. And Jurassic Park is just a classic.
I've heard it's a good book to read. I haven't checked it out yet, though.
I've never read it.
No.
Good.
What about you, Marmar?
I have a lot of favorites. Red Rising is definitely one for sure, but I also have to say pretty much any book by Cassandra Clare. So for those who don't know what she does, so she did the Mortal Instruments series. It starts off with City of Bones. They tried to do a movie about it, and then they also tried to do a TV series about it called Shadowhunters. But the books, of course, are the best. And I like it because Cassandra Clare built this entire world. she has so many series that all go into this world. And sometimes she goes back in time and like kind of introduces a new set of characters in the same world, but you get in a different city or something. So you get like this really like lots of different perspectives. And so shadow hunters, so it's this group of people called shadow hunters who basically are, they actually are like, they have like angel blood in them. So they're human, but they have angel blood, and they're kind of like the protectors on Earth against like vampires and werewolves and fairies and demons and like anything like that. They kind of protect, they call normal humans mundanes. And so they kind of protect everybody. But the thing is, the mundanes have no idea that any of this exists. So it's kind of like a secret thing, but it's a really, really interesting world. Like I said, she's had multiple series about it, and I'm gonna talk more about it because there's been a lot of different narrators because, like I said, they've switched perspectives. But in the first book, and Stephanie, you'll like this, the narrator is Mae Whitman. Oh,
I do love Mae Whitman.
Yeah,
she's so great.
She's such a cute actress. I love her, and I like her. I've been watching her in Good Girls lately. Oh, she's fun.
She also plays Tinkerbell in the Tinkerbell movies.
Yeah, really? She's a really great voice actress.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I was gonna throw out this question. I was gonna show some. Steph says Lord of the Rings, and of course Erica agrees. Yeah. And that sounded so sarcastic. Yeah. But no, I haven't listened to Lord of the Rings, so I don't know. But what's your favorite place to listen to audiobooks? Where do you guys do your listening? Sorry, I'm getting a
Libby for me. No, you're okay. Libby is a library app. I really like that one. And then I've had some awesome friends who've shared their Audible account with me. Wink. Stephanie. So it's been really nice to be able to get titles from there as well. So you can, just kind of a couple different places. Is that what she means? Is like what places? Or
I took it as like where, like how do you? But I think you could take it either way. Because I listen to Audible mostly. I had Libby, but I don't know. I don't know why I don't use Libby anymore. I lost my library card, so I need to figure that out again. But I definitely listen at work and then on my commute. And then with children, I definitely stick my headphone in my ear and listen while they watch like stupid things like Peppa Pig or whatever. Because there's only so much of that you can consume. You got to have
How dare you? Peppa Pig is a treasure.
Oh my gosh, Peppa Pig's the worst. You either have to have like some audiobook going or some true crime podcast going while Peppa Pig's in the foreground.
Yeah. I'm always I need something to listen to while I'm like cooking or cleaning. So I'll like listen a lot while I'm cooking dinner, or it's the only way I can like, get anything done around the house is by listening to something. So I'm always just like listening to a book while I clean, which is not often, but
yes. And to answer, definitely. And to answer the real question, I think that Erica meant, I like you guys. I'm very much about multitasking. And I love having something to listen to, whether it's music or a podcast or audiobook. And so the best time to do that is when I'm commuting to work and also cleaning and even just like getting ready in the morning. I get a good 45 minutes to an hour of a book or podcast listened to while I'm getting ready. And it's just, I just like to make the most of that time. So yeah, definitely just by doing chores and other mundane tasks.
I think on that note too, it might be a lot of people would say, like, don't think that listening to audiobooks is the same thing as reading audiobooks. So I wondered what your guys' thoughts on that was. Whoever wants to go first can start us off.
I feel like it is. I feel like it's the same. I got into like a couple arguments about this because I was really into audiobooks. And for a while, it was like the only way I was consuming books, because if you're working full time and commuting, you don't have time to read books. So I was listening to audiobooks and someone's like, it's not the same. So I like Googled it one day. And the way I understood it is that like the book is here and your brain and like your comprehension is here. And like reading it goes like this. And then like listening goes like this. So it's like the same destination, but your brain takes a different path to get there.
Oh, interesting.
But it's like you get the same benefits.
Right. I think I read something similar where like the part of your brain, that's activated while you read is the same part of your brain that's activated while you listen. So you're just consuming it differently, but it's the same. And I think it is a little ableist to say that listening isn't the same as reading, because not everyone has the ability to read or the means to. So, I mean, it's a way for people who can't necessarily do the same things to get the same results. So
true.
Yeah, I definitely I've found that audiobooks just works a lot better for me, not only for multitasking reasons, but also I can I just get through books so much faster. I love stories. I'm a very avid TV watcher as well. So I just really, really love to consume lots of different stories. And so I just need to be able to like read a book, listen to a book, whatever you want to say. You guys know what I mean. And then be able to just like really enjoy it, finish it, and then go on to the next one so easily. And I just find that I can do that by audiobooks. Like I was thinking about it the other day. I have a book, like an actual physical book that I started reading like almost a year and a half ago. And I read like 2 chapters of it. I like actually sat down and read 2 chapters of it, and I haven't picked it up since. But in that time, I have finished like, I don't know, 20 something, 30 something books in audiobook form since then. Like it's probably more than that, or maybe a little less. I'm not totally sure because I don't keep track, but like, it's just so, Erica says, I'm going to show this up here, Professional Binge Watchers Club. So yeah, her and we talk about TV all the time, but it's also with books and podcasts for me. I love the binge.
Well, and it's kind of like how DVDs are kind of becoming obsolete because everything is being streamed. And I kind of feel like books, which is really sad because I love books. I have 2 big bookshelves behind my computer right now, but books are in some ways becoming obsolete too, because there's other ways to consume the same content. So, and like Jason says here, like if he listens to a book, he's way more likely to finish it. And I think that's pretty true with me too, which is kind of sad. We should take time to read a book, but everyone's so busy. Who has the time?
I don't.
No, if you're an adult, you don't have time to just sit down and read for hours on end. You have responsibilities. Like Stephanie, you're feeding your child. Like we don't have time to read books.
Right.
And so if we're cleaning or driving, we can listen to them, and it's kind of the same.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna like. When you sit down, you kind of start thinking of like, oh, I could be cleaning, or I could be vacuuming, or doing the dishes, or whatever. And so this way, you get 2 things done at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone has kind of like their favorite type of narrator or their favorite narrator. What do you guys think makes good audiobook narrators, and what do you guys think make bad audiobook narrators?
I think one thing that came to mind for me, in just several of the books that I've listened to, because not only do I listen to a lot of young adult fiction, but I also love a good murder mystery. There's a couple of authors, I highly recommend you guys listening to, there's my notes. I had to scroll down. Anything by Ruth Ware or Lucy Foley. They are both British authors, and I think it's cool that they bring in British voice actors to do their books. Like they match the country or the culture, you know what I mean? Like I feel like they do a good job of matching that rather than just be a bunch of white people. You know what I mean? Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but like, you know, it needs to match it. So if the setting takes place in Scotland or England or something, I want to hear that accent. And so it's just more authentic to hear the narrator who's also from that region.
That's a good point. I just finished an audiobook, and I won't say what it was, but the narrator was white. And there were a couple different times where the character voice changed. And at one point there was like a Black woman, and she was like sort of using like African-American vernacular. And I was like very uncomfortable with it because I was like, you should maybe have hired a Black person to read these, or like, even, I don't know. I don't think it's as weird if like a Black person is reading for white people, but I think if it's a person of color, it should probably be narrated by a person of color.
I agree. I've listened to a few. I do love it when like Black authors will use Black narrators. I think that it comes off more authentic that way. The same way that I think, like I listen to all the Outlander series, which I don't know if that's a brag or a thing I should be ashamed of. But they go throughout like they go throughout everywhere, like a lot of places in Europe. They go to Jamaica and like the like Virgin Islands at some point, and they kind of do the same thing where they are kind of in a place with like slaves because it's in the past and Black people, and they kind of do the same, and it's just a little off. But the narrator actually does do a really good job in Outlander representing the European, different European accents, because they do like French and Scottish and everything. Scottish has to be one of the hardest dialects to kind of incorporate and turn on and turn off. I think I'm just bad at accents in general, but for me that would be so hard.
Well, and speaking of Scottish accents, I actually wrote this down specifically because I thought of it. So there's this series, I actually, I know Steph read it too, but it's called The Lost Queen by Signe Pike. And the narrator is Tony Fruiton. And she has a very lovely Scottish accent. So much so that like after I would listen to the book, I would like, my thoughts would be in a Scottish accent for a short time. I don't know if that's ever happened to you guys, but I just like would try to then like repeat some of the things she was saying. I can't do a Scottish accent to save my life, but I love hearing it. So anyways, that's my thought on that.
Corinne suggested to me at one point to listen to The Dutch House, which is narrated by Tom Hanks. And there's still times where I like narrate my life in Tom Hanks' voice.
It's so good.
Yeah, he's just so pleasant of a voice actor.
It's just, the book isn't even that exciting. Like I was trying to explain the plot to my sister, and she's like, "This sounds really boring." But I'm like, "But it's Tom Hanks telling you the story, so it's magical."
Like the story is a little like it's really good, but it is a little mundane. It's like a life story, but yes, it is. Tom Hanks adds a little something to it.
He does.
I know you have strong opinions about narrators and what makes a good narrator. What do you?
So for me, the narrator has to. This is gonna sound weird, but the sound of his voice or her voice has to fit with the theme of the book. So like I read a book and the characters. It's like a really military style book. And so the guy that narrates it, he almost sounds like a drill sergeant. And I think that is like critical. Like if you get somebody that's reading the book that doesn't sound like the setting, that like really throws me out of it and makes it difficult for me to like put myself in the character's shoes. So I don't know. Did you guys already say that?
I think that's a great point. I think in that way too, I really enjoy it when authors narrate their own books because they know where like to add inflections, where they know where to make things humorous. And I think good narrators can really do that, and bad narrators are just that doesn't come naturally to them as well.
I would argue that sometimes authors narrating their own books, they don't have as much like professional training.
That's probably true.
As a voice actor would, and so sometimes I have a harder time getting into it, and it totally depends on the author. But sometimes I have a harder time getting into it if they aren't maybe as skilled.
I think it works really well if it's like a biography, if it's their life, then it's like, okay, yeah, I'll listen to Obama tell me about his life.
Yeah, of course.
But if it's like a fictional story, sometimes that kind of does throw you out of it. One of my favorite books that was read by the narrator was Neil Gaiman, and he read his Norse he read his Norse mythology book, and that one's like it's fiction, right? Obviously.
Depends on who you ask.
But it's more of a historical fiction, and so he didn't have to really like give characters voices, and I thought that was a really cool way to have a narrator read his book.
Do you all think that men have an easier time incorporating female voices, or females have an easier time incorporating male voices into their narrating?
Oh, that's a hard question because it
does differ with narrators. I understand.
It really does. I'd say probably, I'm just trying to think of some of the books I've read recently. I would almost say a female narrator trying to do a male voice
is better or worse?
Is better.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think a male doing like a higher voice can sometimes come off as like comical or cartoony. That said, if the narrator is like doing too much character, I guess it depends on the book, but sometimes I just like really don't like how much personality is put in. I'm like, I still want it to be a book. I don't want it to be like a radio drama. It's a book. So I still need to like be able to use my imagination. So, but I do agree. I don't like either way. Like if it's a book about a man, I want a man narrating it,
Yeah. I also really appreciate when they, like if a book is going to feature different perspectives from different characters, I actually like it when they have a different narrator for those roles. For the most part, like I think it just kind of depends on the book, and how well the narrator is. But I think it's kind of fun. Like, for example, there's a book I read. I mentioned the author Lucy Foley. Just kidding. This is a different British author. Her name's Alice Feeney. She wrote a book called His and Hers, and it's narrated by Stephanie Racine and Richard Armitage. You guys know who that is, right? That's a familiar name. I liked it because so obviously it's a book. The book is called His and Hers. And so it's interesting to see the two perspectives change throughout, and then they have the two different voice actors covering those characters. And it's just kind of, I like it because it just kind of helps separate it. So it just doesn't sound like the same narrator for all of the different characters' perspectives.
I was going to throw up this comment. The guy who narrated Harry Potter was phenomenal at female voices. We can't compare everyone to Stephen Fry. Fantastic.
He is
I
the
wish
exception.
every book was narrated by Stephen Fry, but unfortunately he has to have a life outside of audiobooks.
He is the exception to every rule.
Yes, it's very weird. And then I was also going to throw up this one. As a female who does TTRPG characters who are male, it's hard to make your voice go down like that. But women do it better in audiobooks. Last RemoteCon in September, we had a panel about voice acting where a couple of professional voice actors came on and talked about it. And it is interesting because you think, I do voices, I could do it, like it's fine. And it takes a lot of training that I don't think you always take into account. I think everyone kind of thinks, a lot of people think in their mind like, oh, I could just read a book and that would be an audiobook and that would be great. And that's just not, it's just not that easy. I think the training that people have is really, I mean, as you can tell, it can make a book, or it can make it almost unlistenable too. So I was also going to wait. Okay, so we all answered females who do male voices.
I do the opposite. I would definitely say the opposite. I have a hard time listening to females when they do a male voice because I'm like, you don't sound any different. Like they don't sound different. And so it's hard for me to identify which characters are which because I don't get that level of detail. But I don't know. Maybe that's just a bias thing. So
maybe we're all biased.
Yes.
Let us know in the comments.
Yes.
What you prefer and what you identify as.
Would you guys rather have a single narrator or a cast?
An ensemble.
Because I've read both, and I don't like it when it's an ensemble. I would much rather have just one person reading it. When it's an ensemble, I get confused, and maybe I
think I agree to some extent because I don't know. I like consistency, and I get thrown out of it if there's like too many different. But I listened to the Joy Luck Club, the audiobook, and it covers like many different women, and I didn't realize that for like a long time because it was the same narrator. So I think sometimes it's probably useful because I was really confused probably about half of that book.
Yeah, I've read a couple that
See,
are like,
I do like...
Sorry, I was in Handmaid's Tale does an ensemble with a bunch of famous people. And that was really great. I think they did a pretty good job on that. But I think I prefer to read a single narrator. I think I'd like if I was to ratio it, I'd want to read one like 3 single narrator books to every one ensemble book. I don't know.
See, I'm the opposite because kind of like what I was saying before, I like that change of perspective. And for me, it's like having different narrators. It helps me, like, especially if it's been a minute since I picked up my book and I don't remember where I am in it. If I hear a voice, a specific narrator's voice, I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm in so-and-so's chapter right now. It just kind of helps me remember where I'm at. And like the one that comes to mind is Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. I just re-listened to that one. And so it's just kind of, because that's in the Red Rising series, that's the first book that it changes to multiple perspectives. Because the first 3 books are all the same narrator, all the same perspective, and then it switches. And so it's kind of nice to be able to like hear that that variety. So I definitely I think I do like having an ensemble.
Jason threw out this, which sounds very confusing to me too. I feel like a cast would work well if they were consistent with it. I listened to a web novel where they did a cast for special episodes, and it would throw me off so much.
That sounds awful. Yeah. I wouldn't finish that.
Consistency here with our audiobooks. We've talked a little bit about famous people narrating books. And in like the latest, what was it, like Grammys? I think they did audiobook, an award for audiobook narrators. And all the nominees were celebrities narrating their own like biographies, which I found quite interesting because Blake and I have talked about audiobook narrators quite a lot, and we have a lot of really great audiobook narrators that we enjoy, and I wish it was kind of geared more towards that than just more famous people getting more awards. Would you rather listen to like a famous person read a book? Does that do anything extra for you? I know we talked about Tom Hanks a little bit, and he was great. I will give that to him.
I think a really good example is Ready Player One, is read by Will Wheaton. He's a super nerdy guy. He fits the setting. He's a performer, so he performs it. And I really liked that. So that's an example of a celebrity that I'm like, yeah, he deserves credit for a performance in this reading. Whereas I think the person that won at the Grammys was Rachel Maddow for reading her book. And I'm like, that you just read your own book. Like, it's not get an award for writing a book. But I don't know. I feel like there's way more involved into a performance of a book than just reading it, you know. I
don't think I have like a strong opinion either way, but I do find it really fun when a narrator is a voice that I recognize from like a famous actor or actress. Like it it's like, oh, hey, I know this person from so-and-so and so-and-so. And so it's just kind of fun to hear their voice in a different setting. So I don't know. I think it's fun, but I'm also totally okay with someone I've never even heard of before.
I think I'm probably like more likely to listen to a book that I wouldn't normally listen to if there's like a celebrity narrating it. Like I'm totally a sucker for that. And I know Audible loves to do that all the time. But like I was like, I don't really want to listen to Pet Sematary. And then they were like, Michael C. Hall is reading Pet Sematary. And I was like, absolutely. I loved it. I'm a total sucker for like celebrities. But I do agree. I don't think they deserve awards for reading their biography. I mean, I think there are definitely a lot more talented professional people who don't have that kind of celebrity that should get awards for that.
Yeah. Jason in the comment has mentioned several times that James Masters does Harry Dresden, who is Spike from Buffy, if anyone. He's probably in other things, but the thing I know him for is Spike from Buffy.
Can I talk
What?
Can I talk about James Masters for a sec?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, so I didn't watch Buffy, so I didn't really like know who James Masters was.
He's the problematic bad boy to Buffy Summers.
Oh, okay, cool. I mean, I recognize his face. Like I just Googled him again to make sure I remembered his face. And I'm like, okay, yeah, he looks familiar. He's been in some things. But I was more introduced to him as a narrator through the Dresden Files that Jason mentioned before. And I don't know if you want to throw up that comment, Steph, where he talks about Harry Dresden as a kind of the character, because like I was going to totally bring up that point. So I'm so glad you did too, Jason, because it's true. Like having I think having like one person, especially with the Dresden Files, there's so many books. I think there's like 15. I think kind of having like the same narrator, he kind of turns into the character, and James Masters does such a good job with it that it's like you hear his voice and it's like, oh, Harry Dresden. And it's funny because back to the Cassandra Clare books that I was talking about, it was the second book. It's called Lord of Shadows. It's in the Dark Artifices series by her. So it's like another one of her series kind of later on. And that book, it like switched to multiple perspectives and it was more focused on a male character. So all of a sudden it changed to a male narrator. Whereas the first book was the opposite. It was female and female, which, side note, that narrator was Morena Baccarin. Do you guys know who that is? She was Inara in Firefly, and she was Deadpool's girlfriend, Vanessa.
Oh.
And she was, this is my favorite, she was Swarley in How I Met Your Mother. If you guys watched that show, you should know who I'm talking about. Anyways, so I digress, but back to Lord of Shadows. So yeah, it switched to this male character perspective, and the narrator starts going, and I'm like, wait a second, Harry Dresden, what are you doing here? And sure enough, I like confirmed it, and it was also James Masters. And that just made me so happy to be able to recognize a narrator in a completely different series show up. And so it's just kind of fun to be able to see those narrators across multiple books.
It's fun to recognize your favorite narrators. It's such a niche thing that like, you would mention a narrator, someone, they'd be like, okay. And you'd be like, no, I promise it's actually very cool.
Erica asked this question, and I'm curious what your answer is. Where did she say it? There we go. What's your favorite place to listen to an audiobook? Did you guys already answer that? We
talked about that while you were upstairs.
Okay.
Well, you were getting a baby's bottle.
Well, I think it's interesting that like when you have an audiobook, you're like 100% of the time doing something else.
Yeah.
Like nobody just sits down and like looks at the wall and listens to an audiobook. I just think that's interesting. Like when you curl up with a good book on a couch, that's all you're doing. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting way that you can multitask and still get a story. So
I thought this was an interesting question that kind of brings together our worlds with audiobook worlds. What about podcasts about audiobooks or podcasts about books? Do you guys listen to any podcasts about books or book series?
Not often. I think the only one that really comes to mind is for the Red Rising series that we've mentioned several times. And it's funny because we just in our previous panel, we had a Red Rising panel and we had a podcast called Howler Pod on, and they are the podcasts that I listen to about that book series. So
I know. The only thing that really comes to mind is our friend does a podcast called Fanatical Fix and Where to Find Them, which it's a Harry Potter themed podcast, but it's about the fan fiction that's come from it.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It's fantastic. She also does one where she turns rom-coms into horror movies. Both are fantastic. Shout outs to But Make It Scary and Fanatical Fix and Where to Find Them.
Oh, that does sound fun. I listen to this podcast called Criminal that's hosted by Phoebe Judge.
Oh, yeah.
But she has another podcast called Phoebe Reads a Mystery, where she just reads like one episode is like one chapter of a book that is in public domain. So she's done like Dracula, she's done like Sherlock Holmes, she's done some Agatha Christie, and her voice is really soothing. So I like to kind of put that on when I'm like needing a mellow kind of vibe.
Nice. Did you want to show that Jason does in fact?
I just want to point out Jason is a serial killer.
Oh my goodness.
I will play like Tetris on my phone
but
while listening before bed. Like I'll be in bed, you know, like how people read in bed. But if there's like an audiobook that I'm listening to, I'll like play a game on my phone or like chop down trees in Animal Crossing or something. So that's kind of like staring at a wall.
I've definitely had days where I like to come downstairs and play Overwatch, but turn it all the way down so I can listen to a podcast or an audiobook. It's like you need a little bit of both, like the chaos.
Did we just lose Corinne?
No, she's still here. Did we lose you?
Oh. Everyone's still here to me.
Marlee!
She's blinking very slowly. I think it's her.
Do you guys ever listen to the audiobook and read the book at the same time?
No, absolutely not.
Oh yeah.
Just that.
I would never.
This has also been a debate between me and Blake. Do you listen to it at the speed at 1.0 speed, or do you speed it up?
I speed it up.
I do too.
Maybe I'm just not smart, you guys. Okay, because I can't do it.
Are you on? Can you guys?
It's very problematic, Marlee.
She's
my back.
Can
you guys hear me?
I can hear you. We cannot see you.
There you are.
Speak.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Okay.
You're just kind of blurry.
I don't know what's going on. It's probably my internet, so sorry about that. I can't even remember what we were talking about just a second ago. Oh, I was going to say, Blake,
you blamed it on Corinne.
Yeah.
Blake, you're a monster for reading the book at the same time as listening to an audiobook. That's just weird.
It is weird.
But no, I was also I was also going to say, honestly, a lot of several different times I'll be if there's like a video game that I'm playing that might have some kind of more like mundane tasks, or it's just kind of more of a chill game, I will listen to an audiobook while I'm playing a video game.
I feel vindicated. Thank you.
Yeah. But do you listen to it at regular speed?
Nope.
Oh, 1.5 speed all the time.
1.5.
I'm usually about 1.25.
Yeah, I'm a 1.2 if I have to get through it fast, or if the person is reading it really slowly, I'll do 1.4, I think is what Libby does, or like 1.4 or something like that. But and then very rarely will I listen to it at normal speed. Like if it's a celebrity, that I am enamored with, I will listen to it at regular speed, but very rarely.
Do you guys think that audiobooks have helped you read more classic books? Like more of the classics?
No.
I think if anything, they've made me read more like trashy, pulpy books because I have a hard time paying attention to something that's really like long and lilting. I need something that's like kind of poppy, pulp kind of. So I think I've listened to a lot more trashy novels that are like 7 hours long. I just zip right through them.
I just have way too much. I just have way too much on my list, especially in the young adult fantasy genre, that I can't get around to other types of books. Like I just need all of my young adult fiction, and of course, like I said before, like I just need to throw in my murder mysteries too.
I always see like Anna Karenina and other books that are like so damn long. I'm like, I should read that. And then I go back to like Outlander or something.
Have you guys already asked, is listening to a book, can you say you're reading a book?
Mm-hmm. We did talk about that.
Okay.
What do you have to say though?
Oh, absolutely. If I'm like, oh yeah, I'm reading a book right now, and then someone finds out I'm listening to it, I don't feel like I have to apologize.
Yeah. And people who point out, oh, you're listening, not reading, like, stop.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't be that gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Well, we are getting to the end of this panel. So I guess the last question I want to ask is if you could suggest a book for someone to listen to, what would it be?
Oh, man. All of them.
You go first.
Okay, I would suggest listening to a book called We Are Legion, We Are Bob.
Oh.
And it's by, I didn't write down the author's name, but the narrator is Ray Porter. And it's a sci-fi book, and it's about a guy that dies, but they put his brain in a computer. And so he is a computer, and then he makes copies of himself as a computer. And so there's like hundreds of versions of him, and it sounds weird, but it's phenomenal. And the guy that narrates it is really good because it's technically the same character hundreds of different times, but he's able to give each version of him a different voice. I don't know. Go read it. Wow. It's really good. It won lots of awards on Audible for like best narrated and stuff like that. So if you like sci-fi books, definitely check it out. It's a whole series. But the first one is called We Are Legion, We Are Bob.
Marlee, did you have one?
I do. I just had to look through my Libby app again one more time because I knew that there was one on the tip of my tongue. And it's one I really, really enjoyed and I could actually see myself rereading. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I loved that book. It was so unexpected and it's just very different. It's kind of I don't know if you consider it YA, but it's just kind of more of like a fantasy sort of book, but set in like the real world. It's just, I don't know, there's some fun twists and turns and it's just really endearing. And it just kind of helps you think about things a little bit differently if you had only so much time to live or if you got to live forever kind of thing. Like, it's just really interesting. But if you like those kinds of books, like, I highly recommend it. And it was narrated by Julia Whelan, which I don't know what else she's done, but she did a good job. I liked it.
Corinne?
Man, I would say you should listen to The Dutch House by Anne Patchett, narrated by Tom Hanks, because it feels like you're hanging out with Tom Hanks. And it's not really like a nerdy book. It's more like a literary book. Not a lot happens, but Tom Hanks is like so friendly. It sounds like you're just sitting down having a cup of coffee with Tom Hanks. And I think I told Stephanie about this, but if you every time he like says a new chapter, he does it in like a different way. So he'll be like chapter 3 or like chapter 16. And it threw me off, but I came to love it. So it was really good.
Nice. I like it.
I think mine would be, it's on my Audible if you want to listen to it, Marlee. P.S. Mine is going to be Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. It's narrated by Ramon de Ocampo. I don't know what else he's narrated, but he did a fantastic job. It's very wonderfully narrated. It's a very campy young adult book. It's political and queer and fantastic. I love it. I was here for it. So, I think that is all the time we have tonight. So I wanted to thank you all for coming. Obviously, we all love audiobooks. I think we could talk about books for a long time.
I have more that I could recommend.
I know.
You guys just want to hear.
We just need to roundtable book suggestions because I feel like book readers, it's like your to be read book pile, but like audio version. So yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Corinne, for hopping in last minute. And then I think Marlee has the winner. I was really excited. I was in charge of getting the prizes together. And so I'm like, what kind of prize should I have for an audiobook panel? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I could do an e-bike. So there's a little bit of a connection. It's a weird connection, but it made sense.
It is in your brain.
Excuse me. So Marlee, did you have a winner for that?
If I was riding a green bike around Salt Lake City, I would most likely have an earbud in my ear listening to an audiobook. So
exactly, it comes full circle.
Only one because it's not safe. You have to listen to traffic.
Exactly. Yes,
that's true. That is very true. I often do that. Okay. Same. Yeah. So again, thank you guys. This was a really fun panel. I could just keep going. But we have to end. So again, we just want to remind everybody that we are raising money for JDRF, which is the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And you can donate through our link. It's givebutter.com/Utah RemoteCon 2. And that's where you can also purchase raffle tickets. We are far from being done with RemoteCon, so there is still plenty of time, plenty of awesome prizes that are still to come. So make sure it's not too late to donate. So go ahead and follow that link and donate. So again, the prize for this panel is 2 annual passes for Salt Lake City Green Bikes. And the winner goes to Robert Neal. Nice. Let's hope he is local because then he'll actually use it.
I think he is. Last time I checked. If not, we'll find something else for him.
Well, we might have to do some swapping. We'll talk to him. But yay! So again, thanks guys. And make sure you catch us tomorrow night. We're talking all things Marvel. It's going to be fantastic.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.